This is 95.3 Business Now.
Wednesday, the 3rd of January. I am Aramide Folorunshaw, and a warm welcome to the program. These are your business quick takes at this time. Business activity in Nigeria expanded for the first time in 3 months in December 2023, despite rising prices, and that's according to the latest monthly Purchasing Managers Index published by Stanbic IBTC on Tuesday. The Purchasing Managers Index report shows that headline index rose to 52.7 in December from 48.0 in November, a reading above 50.0 signal, which represents an improvement in business conditions. Meanwhile, further analysis shows that December's index is the highest in 6 months on the back of improved output and new orders by companies. The Nigerian Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission, or NUPRC, has announced an annual oil and condensate production target of 2.6 million barrels per day by 2026, a significant increase from 2023 levels of around 1.6 million barrels per day. Nigeria, Africa's largest oil exporter, has suffered declining oil production as a result of crude theft and vandalism of pipelines in the Niger Delta, as well as low investment in the oil sector, which has hit government revenue. However, President Tinubu's administration says the oil majors have committed to invest $13.5 billion in the short term, following his meetings with senior executives from energy giants including Total Energies, Shell, and ExxonMobil. Nigeria's Minister of Finance, Wale Edun, says that the government will rely less on borrowing to implement the 28.7 trillion naira 2024 budget, but focus on revenue generation to finance the new year appropriations. Following President Tinubu's signing of the 2024 budget, Wale Edun noted that the new administration is positive about the revenue generation forecast for the year, and the government will leverage technology and digitization to ensure revenues from diverse sources are deposited into the Consolidated Revenue Fund. Meristem Securities Limited has projected that the persistent rise in inflation and foreign exchange challenges in the country will impact the 2023 fourth quarter financials of companies operating in the consumer goods sector of the economy. The Capital Market Services Company noted in its consumer goods sector update for December 2023 that foreign exchange losses for major players in the industry stood at 472.35 billion naira for the first 9 months of 2023, further underscoring the magnitude of a challenge posed by the naira's depreciation on the financial health of consumer goods companies. Well, coming up after the break, the federal government of Nigeria has introduced a new 100 billion naira consumer credit fund in the new year 2024 budget. More on that after this.
This is 95.3 Business Now.
Welcome back. The Nigerian government has included a new line item of 100 billion naira consumer credit fund in the 2024 budget in response to the growing cost of living and increasing borrowing trends among Nigerians. The move comes as Nigerians reportedly borrowed an estimated 740 billion naira from the commercial banks between January and September last year, reflecting the economic challenges posed by persistent inflation and falling purchasing power. Joshua Debisi, a financial services research analyst at Rand Merchant Bank, he joins me now for more on this. Good morning. It's great having you on the line, sir.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
All right. So to begin, what are your thoughts on the new 100 billion naira consumer credit fund in the 2024 budget?
Okay. So I think it's a decent start. I'm not entirely sure if 100 billion naira is enough to cover the shortfall, because obviously, like you mentioned, the rising cost of living has made it that a lot of people's incomes do not are enough. But also the details around this consumer credit and how it works would be very interesting to me because, any interest charge on this money will just make it more difficult for people to repay and put them in a bigger hole in 12 months' time or however long the loan is supposed to last. But overall, I think it is definitely necessary to improve consumer credit because the mismatch between income and expenditure has just grown significantly over the 12 to 18 months.
But again, what are the key issues around consumer credit in Nigeria?
Well, I think we discussed this last week, and I think those issues are still very pertinent. Number one is obviously a comprehensive database on people and their addresses, next of kin, and the like, in order to ensure that people are repaying their loans, because obviously we have some very predatory lending apps and websites who are just preying on the vulnerable and then practically extorting them with high rates and very persistent cold calling or sending out of messages. But instead, what we have to focus on is creating proper risk profiles for everybody and being able to nail down people's addresses and their next of kin in order to ensure that we have every incentive to repay their loans in a timely manner.
So I know you hinted at this earlier, but do you actually really think this proposed 100 billion naira consumer credit fund can effectively mitigate the challenges presented by inflation and increasing borrowing costs, and why?
So, as I said, yes, I think 100 billion naira, depending on how it is deployed by the government. Again, I'm always very wary when the government attempts to enter the consumer credit space because we've seen that they are prone to announcing handouts. I mean, if, that money, if it's just spread evenly across a certain number of the population, will not amount to more than 10,000 naira per person. But I'm not entirely sure that that's the effective way for the government to use their money. Instead, they should be focusing improving productivity and getting our.
Okay, so give me your outlook on Nigeria's consumer banking sector in the new year 2024.
Last year, we saw a pretty big jump in credit as a lot of the news sites have been reporting because of that shortfall that I mentioned. So it's very clear that as long as inflation remains close to 30%, we're going to see a whole lot of borrowing and consumer credit, both from non-traditional banks and from the major banks as well. But obviously, the major banks are going to be a lot more stringent in how they approach lending. But definitely, I expect there to be a lot more growth this year as there was last year due to that mismatch.
All right, Joshua Debisi, Financial Services Research Analyst at Rand Merchant Bank. Thank you so much for your insights this morning.
All right, thank you for having me.
All right. So we move on and let's give you a brief of the first trading day of the year 2024. We're starting with the equities. The Nigerian equities markets kicked off the year with bullish sentiment as bargain hunting in Airtel Africa, 6.0% there. We saw Boasim 5.2%, and that underpinned a 1.63% increase in the benchmark index. As a result, the NGX All Share Index hit a new high of 75,990.88 points to get the new year started. Well, across frontier African markets, the Egyptian main index saw an uptick of 2.44%, while the Kenya Burst was negative, closing 0.14% on Tuesday. Here in West Africa, the regional exchange of BRVM in Abidjan slumped 0.74%, while the Ghana stock market closed flat. And looking into Southern Africa, we've got Zimbabwe Stock Exchange that had edged higher by 1.40% as the JSE in South Africa fell sharply by 1.54% at the close of trading. So we're back on Broad Street. Overnight lending rates on Broad Street apparently expanded by 48 basis points to 16.0%, and that's in the absence of any significant outflow from the financial system. Meanwhile, the Nigerian Treasury Bill secondary market traded quietly. Average yield closed flat at 6.3%. And proceedings in the FGM bond secondary market closed on a quiet note as the average yield remained at 14.1%. So looking at foreign exchange, the Naira opened the new year on a negative note of 8.2% to the US dollar at 988 Naira 46 kobo at the Nigerian Autonomous Foreign Exchange Market. So let's get to oil prices, which rose slightly in early Asian trade on Wednesday amid continued concerns around shipping disruptions in the Red Sea and escalating tension in the Middle East. Brent crude rose 26 cents or 0.4% to $76.11 a barrel and the US West Texas Intermediate crude futures rose 26 cents or 0.3% to $70.64 a barrel. Now, oil prices had climbed around $2 earlier in the week as following attacks on vessels in the Red Sea by Houthi rebels over the weekend and the reported arrival of an Iranian warship on Monday. And that's your business now for today, the 3rd of January 2024. I am Aramide Folorunshaw. Do have a great day ahead, everyone. It's bye for now.
This is 95.3 Business Now.